Hey everyone, welcome back to another stimulus update. We're talking all about this PPP law that just got passed, what it means and what it means specifically for different industries and how it all works. So if you're a small business owner, you definitely want to check this one out. Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another stimulus update. I'm Logan.
I'm Adine.
Hey, and today we're going to be covering the PPP loan that the House has passed, the Senate has passed, and the President has signed it. So now it's officially a law. Adine, What is going on with it? Let's break it down.
Right. So when the original CARES Act passed and this whole idea of PPP came out, it caught everybody by surprise. It was completely unprecedented. It was implemented really quickly. The SBA was working 24/7 to try to create rules really to figure out, okay, how do we give money to people? How do we police it? And then ultimately, how do we manage the back end of forgiving the loans as the CARES Act intended? And along the way, there's been a lot of issues that were essentially that nobody could foresee. One of them was the fact that the original CARES Act said once you get your PPP loan money, you have 8 weeks to spend it. And if you spend it within that 8 weeks, then you're going to have it forgiven. Well, what happened is a lot of people got their PPP loan in the first couple of weeks of April, but most economies were still closed for pretty much most of April and even a good part of May, which made it nearly impossible to spend the necessary amount of money to get benefits out of the PPP loan.
So we had the jobs report that came out in April that said, hey, we're at over 14% unemployment. Then we had the May one that just came out and it dropped. So I know they started to put this forward, especially in both the House and the Senate, expecting that the jobs reports in May would be way higher, 20% even, which is, it would be even higher, or starting to approach where we were back with the Great Depression 100 years ago, but that's not the case. So I guess what is going on now with that, with the updated PPP and the law that just got passed, and I guess what does the jobs report talk about with that?
Yeah, so the way the two interact is a lot of industries have been the most affected. So the ones that needed PPP the most were also the ones that laid off the most people. So leisure, travel, restaurants, retail, that's where most job losses happened. And those businesses were shut down, so there's no way for them to spend the necessary amount to get their PPP loan forgiven. So now what we're seeing is as economies are reopening, those businesses are bringing employees back to work, and they're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we still fit within the 8-week window? So now this PPP Flexibility Act actually gives them 24 weeks to spend that money on payroll. And effectively what that really does is it says, okay, look, we really want you to bring back employees. However, we realize that it's impossible to bring back 100% of your employees within this 8-week window when most states have certain laws in place that don't allow you to operate at 100%. So it effectively makes it easier for those businesses to get the PPP loan forgiven, makes it easier for them to plan and say, okay, look, we're going to bring back X% now. If everything keeps going the way it's supposed to, we'll bring more people back in 4 weeks or whatever. So it just buys time. And ultimately, what I think is going to happen is we're going to keep seeing this improvement in unemployment, meaning unemployment rate's going to keep going down as businesses reopen and bring back employees.
So one of the things that came out with this is that you don't have to spend 75% on payroll. You only have to spend 60%, which to me, it makes sense if you can't get all your employees back, right? Because now you have less people, you have less on payroll. So I guess that allows you to potentially spend the money on other overhead items. But I guess I'm just having trouble working out the numbers unless somehow from last year to this year, you upgraded and got a larger space. It costs a lot more money, whatever it is. So I guess are there specific situations where only having to spend 60% helps?
Absolutely. So it goes back to those same industries, retail and restaurants. if you think about it, they don't necessarily need a bigger space, but one of their biggest expenses is rent. And there's a second derivative to this, which is the landlords that we've talked about. So what's happened is a lot of restaurants and retail stores have gotten PPP, but because they're closed, they're saying, well, look, I'm not going to pay rent if I don't have any revenue. My doors are shut and I don't have any employees here, so I can't pay it on payroll. And if I just write a check to my landlord, I'm not going to hit that 75% number. So what this effectively does is it says, okay, well, look, pay your rent, keep your landlord up to date. They're going to be happy, and then you're still going to have money left over to bring people back and spend that money on payroll. So I think it's because of the fact that property management companies don't have payroll, so they couldn't get PPP or not enough PPP. It effectively allows tenants to pay their landlords so that they're made whole, they don't have an issue, but then also has enough money to bring people back.
I got you. So like for a restaurant, just refrigeration costs are a lot in itself, or rent. So if they don't bring back a full staff, they don't have to spend everything, or like they get to save 15% on the actual staff and can put the extra 15% towards rent, utilities, stuff like that.
Exactly. So effectively, again, buys time as we're phasing in to get everybody back.
Okay, I got you. So it's all signed in. They extend it out from here. So I guess what would the next steps be if you're a small business and you got your loan? Is it now just operate as normal or as best as normal? Payroll takes care of itself, and it's just because you applied using payroll, that's how you get forgiven? Or I guess where do we go from here to make sure that it does get forgiven properly?
So now we're back to the whole beginning of all of this. We don't know, because the SBA put out a forgiveness app about 2 weeks ago. And so a lot of people rushed to start filling it out, figuring out the calculations, and now it's changed again. So now we're back to that beginning part. And the worst thing is we still have to wait for guidance from the SBA on exactly what they want, what documentation they want. The core is going to stay the same. The core is still going to be your payroll reports. So your 941s, your state unemployment reports, some sort of journal or ledger report from your payroll company to just kind of prove the number of people you had, the number of hours they worked, and their compensation. And then it's going to be a question of, again, how do you balance 60% payroll to the 40% other expenses? Because the way the law is written, they set a trap. I don't know that this was intentional, but in the House, this Flexibility Act makes it very rigid. So you have to spend 60% on payroll to have any portion forgiven. The original CARES Act and the original forgiveness app essentially had a ratio. So if you only spent 70% on payroll and 30% on everything else, then your forgiveness wouldn't be a full 100% of the PPP loan. It'd be a smaller amount. So with this Flexibility Act, you have to spend 60 on payroll. So in terms of planning, that's what you're really planning for, is making sure that within this 24-week period, which unless you're going out of business, you should be able to hit, you got to spend 60% on payroll.
So we also have Trump and Pence talking about a payroll tax cut. Now for businesses, to me, I mean, we run payroll, and it's more money towards the employees, because if they get to save on having to pay, payroll tax, then they're going to make more money. But let's say for a restaurant, because they're the ones that are hit hardest, and President Trump even talked about giving special incentives to restaurants and others in the entertainment industry. When you run payroll for a restaurant, that doesn't go into it. That's a separate thing, correct? So if you're
No, it does.
If you're like, let's say, a waiter or waitress, and you save a couple percent on payroll tax, that's not much money, is it?
It can be, so it does count. So your tips do get reported and do get counted towards Social Security and Medicare tax, and both your restaurant that you work at and you as the employee do pay Social Security and Medicare tax. So at the basic level, a 1, 2, 3% payroll tax cut doesn't seem like a whole lot, But if you're also making, say, $20, $30, $40,000 working at a restaurant or a retail, that 3% does end up being about $1,000 to $1,200 a year. So it can add up. It's not as sweet as getting $600 a week on unemployment. But again, the whole idea is, do you really want to be on unemployment for the rest of your life and have the government just pay you $600 a week? Maybe. But the government is not going to do that. So how do we get you back to work, help you out a little bit, and kind of smoothen the ride for both sides, both the business and the employee here?
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. So we have this all signed in. As a small business myself, you're a small business. It's good news. It shows that they're trying to really help out. And then you throw in the payroll tax cut on top, potential payroll tax cut on top of that. Again, it sounds like they're really kind of favoring a lot of the small businesses, trying to get people back to work. Now, it doesn't sound like it helps too much, especially the payroll tax cut towards people on Social Security or disability, because I can't imagine, I mean, they're not paying payroll taxes, but at least we got a step in the right direction with PPP law coming through. 60% on payroll, 24-week period that it has to get paid in. So good to go there. Everybody, as always, thank you very much for checking this out. And if you want to make sure that, especially if you're a small business and you want to learn more about what all this stuff means stimulus-wise and ways to save money along the way, and make sure you stay afloat, make sure you stay subscribed to this, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.